So, there are 67 genders. That's a lot. And the number's kind of arbitrary, but if it's anything, it's more than 2. I'm saying this to preface the idea that sex and gender are 2 distinct beasts. Sex is your physical characteristics, how you grow, what you look like, and obviously a few other things too. Gender is all the stuff that's up here, and it's definitely a lot more complicated than just A or just B. I'll explain a bit more in a moment. First, let's talk neopronouns. There is a fraction, a very specific subset of non-binary people who use what are called neopronouns. Pronouns are, as you probably know, a way to refer to someone without saying their name. Authors use them a lot in writing, so that they don't have to use their shitty character name every single line when they're referring to their character. For example, Dave went to the shops. He bought bread and eggs. It's just an awesome tool of language that is basically ubiquitous across time periods and languages. But, as you may have noticed, in English, these are quite obviously gendered. She and her is for girls, whereas he and him is for boys, where they or them is for plurals, or when you might not know the gender identity of someone. This worked well and fine for the thousands of years that a gender binary existed in the West. But in recent years, sociologists have begun to make the distinction between sex and gender a little more clear. This has resulted in a lot of people identifying themselves as non-binary, i.e., a gender that is distinct from either male or female, outside the binary, i.e., non-binary. You get it. For many of these people, being perceived as male or female causes them actual physical distress and great upset. So being referred to male or female indirectly through pronouns hundreds of times a day simply doesn't work for them. We are lucky, very lucky, as English speakers, because we have a little single word that expresses gender neutrality. They. Normally, this is used in an abstract sense, when the gender identity of the person you're talking about is not yet known. For example, if I want to talk to the hotel attendant about getting a new keycard, I might wonder, what if they ask what happened to the last one? When I say they in that sentence, what if they ask, I'm not referring to a group of people, a plural. I'm instead referring to a singular person whose gender identity I might not yet know. This set of pronouns has been adopted by some non-binary people, or NBs as I'll be referring to them. In my opinion, the 2 meanings of they. One where the gender identity of someone is not yet known, and one where the person is a distinct NB who uses they-them pronouns, are the same. And in the end, I think it comes down to expression. Hey guys, welcome back to another cringe react video. Today, we're going to be looking at the latest shit that these Tumblr gender fucks have come up with. It's going to be absolutely crazy. Righto, let's jump right into it and take a look at this table I found. So, neopronouns. That's what these people are calling made-up words. Fuck off, Windows. Jesus. Let's have a look at these made-up words. We've got all the normal ones, like he and she and they. Then it gets real fucking weird. We've got things like chi, here, fey. Would I ever call someone chi? Like, no, look, I'm not a fucking transphobe, you know. Like, I know and love trans people, even those weirdos on Tumblr. But when you start coming in my room, into my life, and start saying, you gotta say this, otherwise you're being a transphobic racist. There's a bill in Canada called C-16, and it's fucking Orwellian. It means that you can get arrested or fined for misgendering someone. So someone says, oh, my pronouns are she, him, their, fey. They go, well, and you misgender them once, you call them she or he or they or whatever, you do that and you're fucking gone. You've gone to prison for 20 fucking years. It's crap. Right, I won't say anything more political, but that is fucking bullshit, you know? If we get a new person on the workplace, right? New person on the site, and they're like, here's my name and here's my pronouns. You gotta remember 30 new words for every new bloody person who comes on. Like even just a couple of words. I can't remember a couple of words for every bloody person out there. The hell, you expecting me to remember all of this shit? Just because some Tumblr weirdo feels bloody insecure about their gender? God damn. Anyway. It's a bit of a rant on my part, but that's all for today. Remember to smash the subscribe button, smash that like button, smash the notification bell icon, smash the playlist save button. It wasn't hard to find people complaining about neopronouns, I'll tell you that. From what I saw, there were two main people who were complaining about the very existence of neopronouns. The first is from people like GamerBro Davo here, who is firm in his belief that there are only two genders and would probably not have sex with a trans woman. You know, he's a real gamer. For all the bigotry expressed in the strawman video I made, he does raise a couple of seemingly good points. First of all, he says that neopronouns are just made-up words. I mean, that's kind of undeniably true. Of course they're made-up words. I mean, in the wise words of Thor, all words are made-up words. Does he think like God just bestowed upon us two sets of pronouns? Anyway, I get that that's kind of a cop-out answer. I mean, nobody's going to learn neopronouns in school, and they haven't like evolved over thousands of years of history. So they are, to pretty much everyone, new words that appear to have developed inorganically and just appeared from the internet and is being forced on people, which is far from the truth. But I want to make a quick point about how quickly your brain can develop things. Let me let you guys in on a little secret. Your brain is really good at using language. Like, really good. Let me show you a meme that did the rounds on Instagram about a year ago. Chumby. That word. That damned word. You see, me and my then friend used chumby a lot. We really latched onto this meme. First as like a name, like a noun for other people, like, because you know, it's kind of cute, kind of woo, I guess. But then we like went to town. It really took a life of its own. That we started like, we made it a noun, and then we made it a verb, then we conjugated that shit. We had chumbing, we had chumbied, we had chumbiness, the whole shebang. And this was all from one text post on Tumblr at that. And if this one word from a one-word post on Tumblr can make it into a personal lexicon, then don't you think other stuff could be too? Like someone's name or pronouns, even? Everybody does this. You know those little words or references you have, like language references that you have with like a few of your friends? Like maybe two of your mates or like a few of your mates? Those sort of things. It's a really wholesome part of human language that we have. It's like, yeah, I remember. I was listening to you when you said that. And it's sort of like a callback to another time. You know, it's really cool. It's things people do. And I highly suspect you've done it in the past as well. At least once or twice before. This is all before we even consider phrases and other aspects of language that aren't just words. Like phrases, for example, like the one I used at the start of the last sentence. This is before you even consider. I know what all those words mean on their own, but that phrase in particular has one particular neuron that fires in my head every time I use it. I don't think of those words as individual words, but instead as a block, which I can use. I don't think about it, I just use it. Language is insane, and it's kind of sublime and awe-inspiring that our brains can just do this. Just like my brain can just say phrases it wants to, just all the time. It's mad. Once you start using a word or a phrase, it's in your vocabulary. Once you use it about 3 times or so, it just becomes a word like any other, just a word that you can use. Pronouns and neopronouns are the same. Once you start using them, they'll stop being made-up words and start becoming just words, because all words are made-up words. Oh, and I want to talk about Bill C-16, because it's a bit of a meme. There's actually a subreddit that keeps a running total of the number of people that have been arrested in Canada since Bill C-16 was implemented a few years ago. So if we want to check the subreddit, it's still 0. Man, all those years, it's still 0? Oh well. Maybe next week, huh? I'm being honest, it's kind of pointless to argue with the gamer bro, because ultimately he's coming from a place of xenophobia and bigotry. Like, he's not trying to advance social conditions or have an honest discussion about neo-identities and neopronouns. He's just trying to dunk on trans people. Especially trans people he sees as more vulnerable for the bloodthirst of a wide reactionary audience. That's kind of how YouTube is. He's not trying to turn uwu anarcho-syndicalist catgirls into gamer bros. He's taking gamer bros and just dunking on trans people for them. His audience likes him because he's a dick. My advice to you, if you come across a gamer bro like this, is to simply point out how unnecessary their fluster is. It's a fraction of non-binary people who use neopronouns. Like, it is a tiny number. I'll let streamer and leftist Vosh explain a little more.
By this. I am a fucking lefty. I have been in aggressively queer social spaces for like fucking 8 years. I have never met a person who asked to be called by neopronouns. Not once. Not in college. Not in fucking university. Not in my the job.
The gamer bro's criticism of neopronouns is pointless, boring, and if I'm being honest, very un-Australian. Which is why I want to move on to the next group of thugs who think neopronoun bad, and it's transmedicalists. Because of course it's transmedicalists. Thanks, guys. For the uninitiated, transmedicalists, or true scum, are trans advocates who are quite picky in who they deem to be real trans people. They believe one must exhibit gender dysphoria, a mental condition, in order to be a valid trans person. Often these people will misgender trans people that don't pass as the gender that they identify with. Needless to say, for this reason and a few others, they are widely disliked throughout the rest of the trans community. A Reddit thread was literally posted on the day of writing in r/truescum, and that community seems to be in agreement on what neopronouns are. Apparently, neopronouns are transphobic. Okay, I can at least talk to this one. I can understand this reasonable complaint and valid criticism of neopronouns and, by extension, neo-identities. I think, however, the people making this argument are making a fundamental misunderstanding of what neo-identities are, where they come from, and what their purpose is. Hey guys, this is where we finally get to talk about Tumblr and how a single internet website totally changed the way in which marginalized online communities develop. The first thing we have to recognize is that when true scum make claims that neopronouns are transphobic, they sort of imply that people who use neopronouns are appropriating trans language for their own purposes. The further implication from this is that people who use neopronouns and neo-identities are transtrenders and thus not valid as trans people. This ties in quite heavily with transmedicalist rhetoric, because as soon as you start identifying as a neo-identity, or like Libra gender or something, then you sort of admit that this is something that you've created for yourself, rather than something dysphoria that's forced upon you. Okay, let's talk about Tumblr itself. Some excellent queer theorists have written exactly on this topic itself, and on how Tumblr is really incredibly effective at capturing young queer kids. Christine Faraday wrote a 106-page paper on it, the mad lass. But for most of this video, I'll be quoting the work of Jessica Ray Fisher, a trans woman who wrote the paper Transgender Digital Embodiments: Questions of the Transgender Body in the 21st Century. In the paper, Fisher establishes the notion of publics and counterpublics. Effectively, a public is the place where the discourse happens, and it's primarily dominated by people who traditionally have power in society and stick to social conservative ideals. In our society, that's upper middle class, white, cis-het men. You know the deal. In the public, marginalized voices and discourse is often spoken over and trodden down upon because these individual communities can't group together. A counterpublic is a place where they do just that, where marginalized people come together to discuss progressive social ideas or radical new identities in what is effectively a safe space, for marginalised people to talk about their individual experiences and relate them to other people. Quote, probably the most useful of Renninger's ideas is the idea of multiple publics. Quote, many of whom counter the hegemony of the dominant public, end quote. End quote. Christine Faraday, in the paper I mentioned before on this topic, says that, quote, Tumblr is uniquely suited for conversations about identity because of its potential for self-expression, community, and anonymity, end quote. Tumblr is, and has been for the last 5 years or so, the major counterpublic in which people who don't fit into traditional gender identities gather together to discuss. Anyway, I'm talking about all this because I want to get to the heart of the trans medicalist's argument. The idea that your gender identity should not be a part of your personality, and if it is, then your gender as a trans person is invalid. Here is where I want to highlight an absolutely spicy takedown of transmedicalist arguments by Jessica Ray Fisher. Tolerance, acceptance, equality, and equity are made out to be finite resources, it seems, and those who are anti-transgender posit that transgenders are obstructing access to these resources by flouting a respectable way to be transgender. The withholding of tolerance, acceptance, equality, and equity doesn't make those things finite. It makes those who withhold them gatekeepers, or, more honestly, oppressors. There's also a kind of obvious major flaw in saying that trans people's gender identities should not be a part of their personality, and it's that cis people's gender identities are often part of their personalities, and nobody cares then. The only difference here is that these Tumblr gender fucks have realised which parts of their personality are intertwined with their gender identity, and they're playing with it and discussing it in this available counterpublic in the form of Tumblr. And holy hell, are we playing with it.
Thanks, Moon. You see, Moon's gender identity is a neo-identity, and Moon uses emoji pronouns. When written, they look just like the Moon emoji, but when spoken, Moon is noun self, because Moon's pronouns are the same as Moon's name. It's very, very strange when you first get to it, but even in the course of writing this paragraph and saying it out loud, I've just gotten used to Moon's pronouns. They're not that hard to remember. And if there's one thing that I want you to take away from this, it's that your brain can adapt to this crazy quickly. It's remarkable how quickly your brain will grab onto this and adapt it for its own purposes. I think there's something very special going on here and now. I think the individuals on Tumblr, that crazy counterpublic, have realised something that the transmedicalist cannot. That gender identity is descriptive, not prescriptive. The transmedicalist believes that men and women have certain inherent traits associated with being a man or a woman. Things like strength, power, fragility, or submissiveness. The gender progressive, however, recognises that gender identity is not like that at all, and is in fact descriptive. If you are a man, then what a man looks like will be what you look like, because you are a man. The identity man is descriptive of you rather than prescriptive of what you should be. If you know gender is descriptive, then you can be very free with it. The individuals on Tumblr are roaming distant hills with neopronouns and creating majestic and fantastic new ways of expressing their gender identities within themselves. Like clay, they have taken it and are moulding it into something new, something that's never been seen before. I am personally so goddamn excited to see what these mad people get up to in this crazy counterpublic, because whatever they come up with will be magnificent and fascinating, and an excellent way to introspect on our own gender and our own self. It will blur the line between gender and self, and it will describe people, not prescribe them. There is a massive uncharted wilderness out there that people on Tumblr are exploring with open hearts and open minds. I don't know about you, but that is something I really want to see what they come up with, what they find out about gender identity and about the self. Let me leave you with a conclusion from Faraday, who I've quoted earlier. Neo-identities crack open a seam. They cause us to reevaluate ideas that have been presented to us as natural. They cause us to recognize the wide variety of experiences and identities that can and do exist. They force us to ask, what does it mean to experience desire? What does it mean to be gendered?